Hi, my name is James Shepard, and today I want to talk to you about how awesome tie downs are. And the title of this YouTube video is a tie down. It's tie downs are awesome, aren't they? Aren't they is a tie down. Now, I had a really good conversation yesterday. I was in, was it yesterday I was in Philadelphia? Yeah, I was in Philadelphia yesterday. I'm driving back, and one of the calls that I had was with a controller, an accountant, who is getting into the merchant services industry. And so we were talking about sales, and he's never read a sales book. He's never been in a sales program of any kind, never been to a sales training seminar or anything like that. He's an accountant, and he wants to get into merchant services sales. So what I was explaining to him was, there's like this whole other world of sales. Just like if you were explaining to me about accounting and a lot of the finer things about accounting that maybe I don't understand because I haven't read that book or I haven't gotten into that. Just in the same way, sales is this whole other world. And what's interesting to me is most of you watching this video, listening to this podcast episode, most of you don't even use tie downs on a daily basis, and yet one of the most important decisions that every sales rep should be making during their sales presentation is when to use tie downs. And so today I'm going to explain to you what a tie down is. Then I'm going to talk to you about the right time to use a tie down. And I'm sure you want to learn about this, don't you? Because it's important, isn't it? Doesn't it just make sense that you want to learn about tie downs? So you see what I'm doing there. Those are tie downs, okay? A tie down basically is something that is going to make the prospect feel much more compelled than usual to say yes and to agree with you. And that can be very good, and it can also be very bad. It can be very good because if it's at the right moment and you've gotten them to the point where they're ready to move forward, but you just need to get them over that hump, it's perfect. And if you don't use tie downs, you're gonna miss those opportunities and you're gonna get a lot more, let me call you back, let me think about it. Whereas if you use a tie down, you'd close that deal. It makes a huge difference. It can be bad because if you use it too much or at the wrong time, well, then the prospect is going to feel like you're being pushy and they're going to be like, no, I'm not interested, and you're going to totally lose the sale. So you first need to understand tie downs. Tie downs are things like, isn't it, doesn't it, wouldn't you, won't you, that makes sense to you, doesn't it? I'm sure you would allow me to do that, wouldn't you? I'll use stuff like right, that makes sense to you, right? I'm sure we want to move forward, don't we? Are there any other questions you have for me? Because I don't know about you, but I just think this is going to be a great partnership, isn't it? It's tie down. So you're using these little words. Now you can use them at the beginning of a sentence, or at the beginning of a sentence like, doesn't this just make sense? Or you could use it at the end of a sentence. This makes sense to you, doesn't it? And so those are tie downs, okay? So you first of all need to understand how to use tie downs. And they're very simple. Again, I mean, there's a lot of them, but I mean, they're all pretty obvious and self-explanatory. You're just adding that little thing onto the beginning or the end. If you add it on to the beginning, it's not quite as pushy. So, doesn't that make sense is a little bit less pushy than that makes sense to you, doesn't it? And so it just depends on where you want to put the tie downs at. So the first thing you got to learn is tie downs. Now, again, I made a recommendation, I think a few videos ago about a book that I recommended called Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blunt. Today I'm going to recommend another book, actually an audio program. It's only like 40 minutes. It's on audible.com. I'm sure you could get it other places, but that's where I've listened to it. And it is Tom Hopkins talking about mastering the art of selling. There's also a green paperback book on Amazon. I think it's $5. It's called Mastering the Art of Selling. That has an entire section about tie downs. So go in there and look at that, but I'm not going to spend too much more time on it because, again, it's pretty simple stuff. Many of you just aren't familiar with it. You don't have it into your normal vernacular to use out when you're selling. I do want to make sure you understand how much money that decision is costing you by not using tie downs. It's a game changer, and you need to use them. However, when you use them is important, and that's what I want to talk about today to make it more specific to merchant services. So when you want to use a tie down, I like using tie downs in two different places in my pitch, and only two, because if you're using a tie down more than twice in your pitch, then you're probably using it too much and you're going to come across as too pushy. So I like to use it 2 different times. The first one is going to be somewhere towards the very, very beginning in my prospecting approach. And so there's something that I want them to say yes to, something I want them to agree with right at the beginning that I'm going to use a tie down for. So this might be, for instance, I walk in, I do some, small talk or whatever. I talked in a previous video about, getting in the mindset of a customer and walking into a business and all that. So, I do that whole spiel. Then once I'm done with that and I'm kind of moving on to the rest of it, at some point I want them to agree to something. Usually in my case, I want them to agree to a free proposal using InstantQuoteTool.com. If you're not using that yet, definitely. I talked to a rep yesterday, been in the industry for like 12 years. And he's like, oh yeah, I heard you mention something. I still haven't checked out Instant Quote Tool. And I'm like, oh, you're killing me. Like what? I'm like, well, how do you get your statement analysis done? Well, I either write it out on the statement or I send it into my analysis department if it's a bigger one and it takes them like 2 or 3 days to get it back to me. And I'm just like, oh, you're killing me. Like, well, you don't do that. Why are you costing yourself money? Go to InstantQuoteTool.com, InstantQuoteTool.com, and you can just do a quote right in front of the merchant. Give them a PDF. It's awesome. So anyway, I won't belabor that. But, in my case, I'm usually trying to get them to agree to that. So what I'll do on my pitch is I'll use a tie down there and I'll say something like, now before I let you go, I'll say something like, hey, thanks so much. It was so great to meet you and talk about your business. Before I let you go, I know I mentioned that I do small business services, and one of the services I provide is merchant services because I find people are usually paying way too much money to process their credit cards. I can usually cut that down and start the relationship by saving a lot of money. Now, the way I want to do this is I have a little app on my phone. It literally takes me like 30 seconds or a minute to give you a PDF price quote. I don't need to see your statement at all. I just want to ask you like 2 or 3 questions real quick, and I can give you a PDF proposal. It's going to show you our prices. That'll give you a chance to take a look when you have time and compare that to what you're paying now to see if maybe we could save you some money. So I'm sure you wouldn't mind if I took another minute on that, would you? That's a tie down, okay? I'm sure you wouldn't mind if we took another minute to do that, would you? I really, really, really need them to say yes to that, right? So that's where I'm going to use my tie down, is kind of right at the end of my prospecting when I need to get them to take some action. And so that's where I'll use it. And again, a lot of you, it's like, I feel like for some of you, I feel like I'm like a brain surgeon and you are on your first day in medical school. And it's like a lot of the stuff, like if I was talking to a brain surgeon and they were like, hey, make sure, you do this certain thing when you're at the middle of brain surgery, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, I have no idea. I don't know how to do brain surgery. And a lot of people, it's like they don't understand sales is really hard and complicated. And it's not just like get out there and do your thing. Like there are some actual like tactics and strategies that are really advanced that help people like me outsell some people like you. Not all of you. I know a lot of you are really good, but some of you can't make a lot of sales. There's a reason why I can, and it's because I know all these little tips and tricks, and I've been doing them for decades. So about 20 years I've been doing these kind of things now. So it's like you've really got to understand and really grasp how to do this stuff. And so again, right at the end of prospecting, make sure you use a tie down. If you're not using a tie down, you are absolutely losing a huge amount of money because your prospects are going to be like, if you're like, if you don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and give you a price quote. They're like, we're not really interested. And you're like, oh man, nobody's interested. All these people just suck. Like nobody wants my services. Yeah. How about instead if you said, it's only gonna take about 30 seconds to do a real quick proposal on my phone. I'm sure you wouldn't mind if you took an extra minute, would you? Now they're gonna say yes. It's the exact same thing, but you gotta know how to say it better. Anyway, use it there. One other place to use it is gonna be when you're closing the sale. Now this one is a little tougher for me to give you like the exact time or phrase to use, but I always like to use a tie down when I'm getting to the point, and a lot of times it's not even my big closing question. It's more of like just the one that gets them over the hump to get into the sales process. And so it could be a lot of different things. I could say something like, I'm trying to think of a good one, like, it's so customized for each person, but it's like, hey, Mr. Jones, first of all, thank you so much for your time today. I really believe we have a lot of great value here, and I know that I'm really looking forward to working with you. It sounds like it's going to be a great partnership, isn't it? And you got to shake your head. Sounds like it's going to be a great partnership, isn't it? So there's one. Again, there's like a million. I mean, every prospect is a little different. You're at different points in the presentation, but you got to come up with these lines and you got to use that tie down. And so you've really got to practice these tie downs with people so that you can really get it down pat. So that's closing. Use one in the closing, one in the prospecting. Please, please, please use tie downs, because if you don't, you're going to lose money, aren't you?